Ryan starts off this hour in Akron, Ohio. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Dave?
Better than I deserve. What's up in your world?
Awesome. Hey, well, I've always enjoyed personal finance and learning about it. And in college, I even helped friends, make budgets and just basic stuff like that. And I just got so excited about it. I knew I wanted to help people with their money. And I graduated this past May 2020, got a job at a bank because I thought, that's a great place to help people with their money. And that's right around this time I started to listen to your show consistently and really do the baby steps for myself.
Good for
And
you.
I've seen how many, I've seen how many lives your plan has changed, dramatically. And I feel like the stories I hear on your show are from people who would walk into the bank and I would feel pressure, from my boss and from corporate to sell credit cards and sell home equity lines of credit. And I feel like I'm in this position where I'm putting people in a position to, come to your show. And you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I'm pushing, my job is to push debt and more debt. And I'm just wondering where, in the financial world can I go where this isn't the, tool of making money for companies is debt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you work in a pizza place, you're going to be selling pizza. That's the way
Sure.
it works. So, I mean, that's, and if you're a health food nut, that probably is not going to be
Right.
not going to
And
be
diabetes,
congruent,
right?
right? Yeah. So that's kind of where you find yourself. A lot of people with your itch gravitate towards the investment advisory side of the business, like our SmartVestor Pros, where you work for a local organization that is a member of a broker dealer, and you help people get investments going. And most of those people do not peddle debt. Most of them peddle investments, and some of them extend beyond that into some basic financial planning, like they'll hook you up to help you get a will, or they'll hook you up in that world. They do. Now, our SmartVestor Pros generally just do investing, but the ones that we endorse. But some of them get into that. Some of them get into a little bit of. But you'll have the opportunity. Let's say you had a client that had an investment portfolio that was 60 years old, but he had a 30-year-old daughter who was struggling, and brought her to you, and you could, to help teach her about budgeting in the process. So we did to do a lot of that kind of thing in the crossfire like that. The only place in the banking world where you're able to, where you're not forced with a quota, a boss breathing down your neck to sell debt like you have experienced, is small town local banks, community banks aren't as aggressive in the debt marketing, and credit unions. That's why I endorse both of those and not the large mega banks, because the mega banks are they're just pretty well debt peddlers is what they do. They just, if they figure if you're breathing, you need a bunch of their debt. And I don't know which one you're working at. I didn't ask, but the larger ones are much more soulless in their approach. And I've got friends in the community banking business. Obviously, I don't believe in borrowing money. I don't teach people to borrow money, but they're much more responsible with their interaction. There's a moral component for them with their interaction with their customer versus these mega banks. They'll just shovel as much down somebody's throat as they can get in there. And you're going to lose your job if you don't sell a certain amount of credit cards, car loans, and home equity loans in your position.
And I'll tell you the 30,000-foot view of your question is you can't work very long in a job that violates a core value of yours. Whether that's treating people disrespectfully, whether that's, like Dave said, peddling food that you think is not healthy, selling debt, at some point you will begin to fracture from the inside out.
Yeah, I mean, let's just completely change the metaphor. Let's pretend that that alcoholism killed your father, and you don't believe in drinking, and drinking scares you to death. You'd make a horrible bartender.
Yeah.
And that's what John's talking about is and you don't need to quit today. We're not suggesting you run in there with your hair on fire and make some political statement. We're not trying to make you into an activist, okay? But long term, what is good for you is to find something, and that's the itch you've got. That's what you're scratching. Is long term, you need to find something that is congruent with your belief system and your values. You're not going to prosper otherwise. You're never going to be a really great banker at that bank.
That's exactly right. And you're never going to be able to sleep either.
Yeah. The boss isn't going to be happy. The customers aren't going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. Nobody's happy. You're not selling enough debt. The customers are getting debt. They're not happy. You're selling debt. You don't want to sell debt. You're not happy. Nobody's happy here.
Yeah.
And so, you're head on your pillow, dude. And so what I would do is I'd develop like an 18-month runway or a 12-month runway that says, all right, I've got to start doing some of King Coleman's materials on hunting for a career, thinking about a career. I'm going to investigate, for instance, the financial advisory world. What's it take to get into that? What have I got to do? What licensing have I got to get? What have I got to do to get hired in that world, and begin to move in that direction? But I would not ask a pizza place to not sell pizza,
right.
And I'm not going to ask a bank to not sell debt. I am going to ask all of you to not buy it from them so that you're not harmed. But I'm not going to expect an alligator to quit biting. It's what alligators do.
And this is a common situation. He says he just graduated, started this job that
he wanted to help people.
Right. You have a vision. And this
help people with money. And banks got money, so I'll go over there.
That's right, man. But that happens to graduates all over the place, right? And then they get in and see behind the curtain, see how the sausage is made, see what we're actually doing here. And then they have a crisis of value.
Yeah.
Right.
Crisis of conscience. Yeah, it's very real. I appreciate you, Ryan. You're a man of integrity, and you weren't being a drama queen about it. You weren't being crazy about it, but you're just going, this just feels weird, and I don't think it's going to work. And you're right, it's not. It's not going to work. And, and they're not going to change.
Right. Okay? So how do you treat them with dignity? Yeah. And then how do you hold your head up high when you go find something else?
Yeah. You're going to suck at selling debt, so they're going to be happy when you leave.